Good afternoon, and welcome to our presentation, TPMS Sales Made Easy. My name is David Sickles. I am the Senior Editor of Tire Review, as well as the moderator for this event. Today's webinar is sponsored by Schrader TPMS Solutions. Learn how TPMS can help increase your shop's revenue. During this webinar, experts will share real-life examples and tips on how you can set up a profitable TPMS program or turn your existing program into a success. First, I'd like to address some housekeeping items. As part of this webinar, we will have a Q&A session. Our speakers today will address as many questions as they can during the last portion of the event. Please submit your questions throughout the webinar, and to increase the chance of your question being addressed, don't wait until the end of the event to submit them. Instead, ask them as they occur to you. To send in your question, type it into the Ask a Question box, then click the Submit button. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on demand for you to view. We encourage you to direct coworkers to the recorded presentation, and you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version in a few days, and it will also be posted on the Tire Review, Tomorrow's Technician, and Shop Owner brand websites. Looking at the widget bar at the bottom of your console, you will see icons that allow you to open and close windows on your screen. And when you place your cursor over any of the icons, you'll see the name of the widget. You'll notice there's an icon for Facebook, as well as an icon that lets you send an email to a friend about today's webinar. There's also an option to print a certificate for attending today's webinar. You can access this by clicking on the yellow certificate icon. If you need help at any point during the webinar, click the question mark icon for some troubleshooting tips. And finally, if the slides stop advancing or if you are having problems with audio, try pressing the F5 key at the top of your keyboard. That will refresh the webinar console on your screen. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters. We are happy to have Tom Kirkham joining us today. Tom joined Schrader in 2007 as a technical support hotline specialist and currently serves as a technical trainer. Over the past 14 years, Tom has seen firsthand the evolution of TPMS and the EZ sensor family of products. In his role, Tom is responsible for Schrader's product training and education through multiple channels and platforms, creating content for Schrader Academy, Schrader's free one-stop TPMS training platform, and working cross-functionally with the Schrader team to support all technical inquiries from customers and installers. We also have Troy Roach joining us. Troy has been with Schrader TPMS Solutions for over 19 years, of which he played an integral role in training customers for 12 years before transitioning to his current role as inside sales manager. Troy has been TIA certified since 2007, and during his travels in the training role, he visited customers in 47 states across the U.S. and continues to support training initiatives with Schrader while working in sales. Now let's get started with today's presentation. Tom, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. As was mentioned, my name is Tom Kirkham. I am the North American Technical Trainer for Schrader TPMS Solutions, and this is my friend and coworker.
I'm Troy Roach. I'm inside sales. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to talk to the customer, customer awareness, and how to sell it.
So our course agenda for today is going to be a basic introduction to TPMS, what the system is about, why we have it, what information it's to communicate to the driver, the technicians, that kind of thing, what parts and pieces are there. We're going to talk to you a little bit, Troy will, about how to recommend TPMS to shops that currently don't service it for whatever reason, or to car owners that don't maintain the system. So he's going to help a little bit in that regard, as well as revenue and profit potential that the TPMS and servicing TPMS can provide to a shop. We're going to talk a little bit about how to choose proper TPMS partner through support and products and that type of thing, as well as TPMS education and our technical support that we offer to our customers. So let's start off. This right here is this is the linchpin of the whole thing, right? Knowing what the lights communicate, knowing what they mean to the driver and to the service technician. So real quick, blinking light is going to indicate to the driver or to the service technician that you have a system issue. We'll talk a little bit more in depth as we go through. The solid light on the dashboard, that's going to indicate basically that the system is doing its job perfectly normally and that you have low tire pressure. That's what it's designed to do. Now, TPMS is a mandated safety system. So it's been on vehicles sold in the United States since 2007. And the two things that it has to communicate are system status and low tire pressure. So basically how the system operates. This is how a direct system, and there is an indirect system and a direct system. We're talking about a direct. That's a system that has a sensor, piece of technology mounted right in the wheel. As the wheel rotates, that sensor, which is going to transmit data into the receiver on the car, it's going to transmit the pressure that it sees, it's going to transmit temperature, and it's going to transmit its unique ID number or unique name, so to speak, into the ECU so that it can process the data. Now, as the car's wheels rotate, this data comes in. If one of the sensors or more broadcasts in a pressure value that is 25% below the placard value. Now, the placard value is the target. So if one or more of those sensors broadcast in a pressure below that by 25%, it's going to give you a solid light on the dash. The placard value, just in case you didn't know where to look for the pressure, that is on the door sill. And that value is going to be, that's the target that the manufacturer of the car wants the tires to run at for a couple of different reasons. Handling, braking, all those types of things, proper suspension wear. That's the target pressure that the manufacturer wants you to run the tire at. It also doubles as the target for the TPMS system. So that's what the computer is looking for. So an important thing to always remember, and these were questions we used to get on the tech line quite a bit, if you change wheel and tire combinations that require a different pressure or ask you to run your tire, big truck tires, that type of thing, they ask you to run at a higher pressure. The car doesn't necessarily know that. It doesn't know that you've changed wheels and tires, but what it knows is the target pressure that's programmed into it, which is what is on your placard. That's also available generally in the owner's manual of the vehicle. So with a lot of vehicles these days, you can get an over or an under. So if you are 25% over or under the target, you'll get a solid TPMS light. So it's important to know that. A lot of this tooling today, including our own, will allow you to go in and change that placard value if the tire wheel combination that you're running requires it. So it's really important to know that that target, that is what the ECU is looking at. And it will alert you if you are 25% below. And in a lot of cases, on a lot of different vehicles, it will also alert you if you are 25% above that value. So that's the solid light condition. Now, at the same time, the system can alert you if you actually have a system failure. So as the graphic is showing you, if we mentioned ID numbers, right? So the computer knows it has 4 ID numbers. It knows it has 4 positions that it's getting reports from. If one of those stops broadcasting in, the computer knows it. The computer knows I should be getting 4. I'm only getting 3. It's going to give you a blinking light on the dashboard as opposed to the solid. So to summarize, the solid light is a low pressure condition, and the blinking light is a system-sided error. Now that system side can be, most times, that's going to be a sensor not reporting in. It's incomplete communication. So that is the typical response, but it also can stretch into the vehicle itself. It can be a receiver on the vehicle that's not processing the information, or an ECU-sided issue where it's just not taking the data and processing it like it should. So blinking, system, solid, pressure. And one more little footnote with that. Typically, if it is a system error and you have a blinking light, it's only going to blink for the first 60 to 90 seconds that the key is in the on position. So as a technician, if you're servicing that vehicle, you're going to want to check it 60 to 90 seconds in that window before it will go solid. So that's just kind of a broad brush of how a direct system with sensors works. Now we're going to talk a little bit, Mr. Troy here is going to talk a little bit about how to recommend TPMS to customers and shops that aren't currently servicing the systems.
All right. Thank you there, Mr. Tom. All right. So one of the things that we see is consumer doesn't really know what they have in their vehicle. A lot of them, they don't really know all of the like bells and whistles that they have on that vehicle. So what you want to do is want to ask them, hey, have you seen one of those flashing lights or solid lights that Tom was talking about? Do you know what it means? Whether the different pressures and malfunctions, and do you know what it is mainly for? So you definitely want to recommend it starting off with the customer up front. So right there at the counter. All right. So some of the things that we see that customers kind of give you a rebuttal on or kind of give you a little pushback, they say, oh, well, I check my tire pressures regularly. They don't check their tire pressures regularly. That's just like me. I'm guilty of that. If one of my vehicles doesn't have TPMS on it. So the biggest thing is you can sorry, the pressures and stuff like that. So you're not going to check it each and every time. So that's one thing. Too expensive. So in other words, if it's they're saying it's too expensive. The thing is it's one of these the things that it's not very you think about it, it's peace of mind. So with your vehicle, your family's in there, children. So it gives you the alert to let you know you've got an issue before you get stranded out on the highway somewhere. The other thing is it don't need it. Well, yeah, you do. It's actually a federal mandate for it. So any shop that you go to, they have to service that. They cannot knowingly disable a TPMS system.
And another thing along that same line, it's not just checking it in the morning, but you can have a problem while you're on the road. And I just actually recently had that. You're driving and you pick up a nail, you pick up a rock, whatever. In my case, I guess it was a rock from his half-mile long dirt driveway. But you go down and I picked up a rock and split the tire. Well, I got the alert right while I'm driving along. So it's really an important safety system to give you either before you drive or while you're driving. Well, if something changes and you start to lose pressure.
Okay. Now, some of the benefits that are actually for the customer that you can talk to them about. One is tire life. So if you make sure your tires are at pressure, the correct placard pressure, you're gonna prolong the life of that tire. So if the tire is low, it's going to be more rubber touching the road. So what it's going to do is it's going to create drag. So in other words, it's going to affect your fuel economy. So you're going to lose, fuel consumption. Now, vehicle emissions, it takes care of that. Vehicle handling, everybody knows, if your tires are inflated properly, you're going to be, fine. But if you're driving on a low or, relatively flat tire, you can have some problems with the handling and stuff, especially the braking distance.
As well as wearing out suspension components faster than they would typically wear out.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you look, some of the overinflated, like I said, the tire wear. So you definitely, you can, ruin the tires. It does make a difference, to make sure that your air pressure is correct. So. All right. So consumer awareness, the part of it we're showing you customer. I always make sure I've got a sensor on the counter or somewhere that you can show the customer what they have in their wheel. Because like I said, again, they don't really know. One thing you can do is you can go out to the parking lot with the customer and you can take a look at it and you can pay attention to whether it's corroded, missing caps, any of the above. Also, you can scan the sensor. So in other words, you can scan it with one of the tools and it'll tell you if it's working or not. So it gives you all those features. All right. The other thing is don't wait till the light comes on to talk about TPMS to your customer. So that's one thing. You want to make sure you put it in their mind, almost like planting the seed that, you're going to have to service this thing. I just want to let you know that. The inspection. So one thing you can do with it is you can actually pull trouble codes with the tool. So in other words, if you read them and they're all fine, but you can check it to see if it set any DTC codes from the past. So one of them may not have transmitted a week ago or a day ago or something. It'll tell you that when you plug up one of these tools to it. And like I said, with the tire changeover bills, when you do that, even when you got a check engine light on, if you're going to do diagnostics on it, why not go ahead and check the TPMS on it to make sure it's working? All right, when? So some parts of the country do winter wheels and summer wheels. So you got two sets. Well, good thing is with the easy sensor or, sensors, you can, instead of having to take your OE sensors out of the OE wheels and move them, you can make a new set. So you'll have two complete sets of sensors. So that way you just swap the wheels and tires and don't have to worry about breaking them down. Now back to the sensor replacement as far as damaging it. One thing is, like I said, when you go out and look at it and you see that white crusty look on it, or the valve on it is, kind of seen its better days. Well, anytime like a bolt on the car, think about it. If it's never been taken off, it's rusty or whatever, when you take it loose, it's a good chance you may break it. So when you see all that corrosion, that means somebody's never changed the service kit on that vehicle. So that's one thing we're going to talk about. Also, the sensor replacement for the batteries. So the batteries are good roughly on OE for about 10 years, 100,000 miles. So whether it be OE or aftermarket. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they die, because they're gonna eventually die on you. So some of the things considered as the age, like I said, the vehicle, 10 years, 100,000 miles. Also, what I was talking about before, the trouble codes, where you can look back and see if one of them didn't transmit one day. That's a good sign that it's, starting to go out and it's going to die on you.
Right. And along that same line, part of being well educated in TPMS is knowing the different scenarios. So how you're going to go about servicing a car that has 15,000 miles on it. And if you want to replace one sensor on a car that has low mileage, that's a totally different scenario than servicing one sensor in a car that has 115,000 miles on it. Because of the fact that these are lithium-ion batteries, because of the fact that they do have a lifespan. When you get the first one that goes at 115,000 miles, you want to communicate to your customer and you want to explain how that process is. You replace one, we want to do this one time and get all of the four of them that are in that lifespan window, or do you want to replace one and bring it back to me in a month when the next one goes? Because they're all in that same lifespan window. So how you go about knowing when to suggest one, when to suggest all, that all plays into understanding the system, understanding how the parts work, understanding the lifespans of them, and just having a complete understanding of the totality of the package.
I've seen, also talking about that, I've seen the customer about the wheels and tires. They come in, they had one bad battery. Well, they didn't want to replace the other three, so they leave. Well, next week they come back, they got another one dead, so they didn't want to replace the last two. So finally, the third time he comes back and they replace the last two, and that's 3 service charges that he could have taken care of if he would have done all 4 at one time.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely a good idea in the right scenarios to recommend all 4, and knowing when to and when not to is really a key part of being a complete servicer.
All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about like revenue and profit potential of what you can, how you can, gain with selling service kits. So like in the past, with a vehicle that didn't have TPMS, you had a standard tire valve, just a regular rubber valve. You changed it every time, like a no-brainer. You always changed it. Well, this has kind of become a thing of the past. So now, when you have it, you have the vehicles with the nuts on the outside of the wheel, and that little rubber grommet now is the only thing holding the air in that tire. Well, what's going to happen is over time it will degrade, it'll corrode just like a regular rubber valve stem. So you want to change it. So in the past, those little rubber stems there, you're looking at probably 20, 30 cents, somewhere in there. And now the kits, these are just rough ball estimates on the pricing. So $1 roughly, what this kit costs. They range when you sell it to customers anywhere from $5 to $8, $9, $10. So what you want to do is, if you look at that, depending on how many tires you do a month, if you got a shop that's not servicing it, you can take a look at the screen there, and it'll show you, even if you don't do but 25%, you can see the gains by doing service kits. But here's the thing, it's not about trying to nickel and dime the customer to do this. But anytime that tire comes off of that rim, it's recommended to change that little service kit. I had a customer of mine that didn't do TPMS. So they didn't want to. It's somebody that I've tried and stuff with. So what happens is he put 4 new tires on the minivan. Well, they bumped the sensors putting them on. They didn't take them loose or anything. They bumped the sensors just enough to cause a leak path that broke the seal. Next morning, person goes out to get in the minivan. All 4 tires are flat. I've had 1, 2, 3, but this is the only case I've had where all 4 were. The problem didn't stop there. They brought a rollback out. The guy didn't bring anything to pump the tires up with. He drugged the van onto the rollback, tore 2 of the tires, and now this shop services TPMS. So
that don't make you cringe, the thought of your car being drug up a rollback on 4 flat tires.
Yes.
I don't know, but
yeah, it's pretty bad there. So, like I said, it's a good thing to, not that you're trying to nickel and dime a customer. These are very reasonably priced, but it gives you a chance to take it apart, look at it, clean it if there's any corrosion or anything, put a new seal on it, and now when you put it back in there, you got the confidence to know that you won't have a comeback.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what goes into choosing a TPMS partner, the support that they offer, the products that they offer, and the criteria that our clients come back to us and say is important to them when they choose who they're going to use. So the top 4 criteria that our customers come and tell us are important to them are expertise. So, having a history and a pedigree and knowing your product and knowing the systems in the cars and all that type of stuff. Reliability, of course. You always want to know that when you buy a part, it's going to be reliable, that it's going to work the way it's intended, the way we're telling you it's going to work. Nobody wants to buy something and then be disappointed that you didn't get what you thought you were getting. Choice and flexibility. And that's an important thing in any automotive application, really, because there's so many variables. I'm an old car guy. You have guys who do hot rods and all this type, big trucks and all this stuff. There's so many variables in the wheels and the tire combinations and the different things that you see all the time. So having a product line that has a lot of flexibility and can be used in a lot of places effectively is really important. And the last topic that people say they want to have is training and support. So you want to know that the company is going to train your people, you and your people, in the products, how to select the right products, the tooling, how to use the tooling, how to install it, all the things that go into it, not only when it works right, but when it doesn't work so right and when you have problems that come up. So as a company, Schrader has been in the valve business. When did you start? It was 178 years ago, right?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Something like that. I mean, I had brown hair and he had hair.
I've never had that.
But we started back a long time ago in the valve business. 37 of those years has been in TPMS directly. The first TPMS system was in place in the mid-1980s. Schrader was able to get the first OE package back in the 1990s. We were the first company to bring a fully programmable single SKU option to market. And we continue to be at the forefront of all those innovations. Wall technology, which is wireless auto locate, tire fill alert. That's something that we've brought in. So our company has been involved from the beginning, and we have always been at the forefront of bringing new technologies and new features into the systems that the OEs use. Okay, so Schrader is an OE supplier. So let's talk just a little bit about what that means. We supply the OE manufacturers with sensors that are on brand new cars being put out. So right now we are at about 50% of the market share. And what that translates to is that about half of the cars that are being manufactured and sold in the United States today have Schrader sensors in them when they're built new at the factory. The OE requirements that the manufacturers put on us as far as quality, reliability, testing, all the different things, defective allotment, all these things that go into making a quality product, it's very stringent for the OE. So what we do is we have to provide those qualities to the OE, and we carry that right into the aftermarket. We have been recognized by Frost & Sullivan. Another big point with us, all of our team, Troy, myself, everybody, we are all TIA certified, and that is the Tire Industry Association. Okay, that is an outfit that tests everybody on your knowledge, and every 2 years you have to recertify. And it's a very detailed test. We've been through it several times. I mean, Troy and I have been with the company long enough to be through that cycle many, many times.
I just did mine again.
So it's a fun process. Another thing with Schrader is that we partner with all of the major tool companies. So our products work with many different varieties of tools, many different companies, branded, labeled, all that kind of thing. So our parts are very flexible. Now, reliability, as I kind of touched on earlier, whether it's tire sensors or anything else in life, when you buy something, you buy it with an expectation and you expect that it's going to work the way you say it's going to work. So being that we are OE and being that we are required by the OE to have certain quality standards, we carry that right into the aftermarket. Our defective allotments are 3 parts per million. We have to go through extensive testing, verified testing, to make sure that our products and our parts are suitable for the OE and meet their requirements. Another thing with an OE that doesn't always translate into the aftermarket, of course with ours it does, is that the sensors are balanced, meaning that when they're in the wheel, it's a perfectly balanced assembly so that you don't have any issue with it walking in the valve hole, high speed, moving, coming loose or lodging different ways. Right, that kind of thing. So those are all just little things that add up that because we are OE, it provides a little better layer of quality going forward, which translates right into reliability. Choice and flexibility. Anybody working in aftermarket anything knows that flexibility is huge. As a company, we would love you to use our products 100% of the time, but in the daily routine of running a tire shop or an auto shop, you see a lot of different things. People bring parts to you, competitors or other shops, they bring things to you. So having flexibility is huge. We have a complete portfolio of TPMS products, from sensors to OERs to programmables, different packages, and we'll talk about that as we go through. Tooling, service kits, everything TPMS that you need, we have a product to cover. We have extensive coverage with our OE replacements. We call them OERs, which are original equipment replacements. We'll touch on those a little bit as well. We have 99% market coverage with our programmable sensors. That's our Easy Sensor line. We are compatible with the leading tool manufacturers, several different companies we work closely with to keep our products in their tooling. And we are, in terms of our programmable sensors, we are the only manufacturer that offers you 3 distinctly different mechanical packages in our programmable aftermarket sensors. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about an OER or an OE replacement. Just like with everything in life, everything has an upside and a downside, right? So an OE sensor is designed to replicate the OE fit and function. It comes from us pre-programmed, so it already has a code in it. So the upside to these are, it's programmed, you can't change it, which is kind of a downside, and you can only use it with the vehicles that the code that's programmed into it is compatible. So the upside is they work out of the box. You can test them with a scan tool to verify that they work. You don't have to do anything particularly to the sensor. It's functioning and ready to roll right out of the box. The downside is that you have a kind of a limited application window, right? Because it's programmed with one code or one language. That's all it's going to transmit. You can't change it. And whatever vehicles are compatible with that particular code are going to work. So for an example, if you were going to try to stock nothing but OE sensors, you would have to have about 24 different parts either in stock or available to you through your distributor to cover 70% of all makes and models.
And I've got I've got a customer of mine that they prefer the OERs because they work with a certain vehicle make and model like Ford and GM. They specifically work with them, so they may have 100 vehicles and need 400 sensors. It's a lot easier when it comes to that to use the OER, so you don't have to do the program. But that's one case that you could have that they use the OERs in.
Yeah, and that's really feeding into the conversation or the message we're trying to get. Flexibility is very important. That's a lot of what we're doing. Some customers and some shops, it's better for them to use an OER. It fits their business better because the cars that they're working on, dealership or in your case, they're a narrow band of vehicles that they're seeing. So an OER is an easier option for them. It works a little better and a better fit for them. That doesn't mean that that's a better fit for everyone.
Exactly.
And if you're in a shop that sees a lot of different vehicles, the programmable option is a really great way. Now, these are single SKU. Okay, so it is one part number that can be programmed to work in 99% of the vehicles that you're going to see. The Easy Go, which is a 33560, that's the sensor that I have here in my hand, that one will program in 1 to 3 seconds. So it's very quick programming. It's OE quality. We carry the same OE criteria into the aftermarket. They are effectively future-proofed. The programmables are future-proofed. And what we mean by that is that the hardware doesn't change, right? Because this is a programmable sensor. And let me just back up just a second. A programmable sensor is blank when you buy it. Okay, so this sensor doesn't have any programming in it. It doesn't program or broadcast any particular codes until you program it using a compatible scan tool. So they never become obsolete because the hardware stays the same, but the software, which is part of your tooling, and we're going to talk a little bit about tooling in a little later on, as long as if you keep your tooling up to date, the add-ons that the software has, new vehicles that have not been released yet, right? They can be added into the software, and the same part can still be used. So we consider it to be future-proofed because even as the different vehicles get added, you can still use the same hardware. We have 3 different interchangeable valve types with this. You have the rubber valve that's on it. That's the way you would purchase it. We have the aluminum option. It can be changed over. It's just a T10 Torx at the bottom. That same valve is also available in a black anodized. So we have the different packages. We also have a fixed angle adjustable, which is the 33700, right? So you have that type of a valve. And then you have the 90-degree, which is the 33900. So that comes with a different type of valve option. This type of sensor here, the 339, does not come with a valve. The valve is actually something that you order as a separate part. And we do have tackle boxes that have all the different.
We've got a variable, it's a box that has all the different straight, 90-degree angle, all that stuff in there. So that's what that's for. So we do have that available.
Right. And that's available as a 90 black. We also have that same sensor that's available in a straight and a shiny aluminum. Now, the overriding point to all this is flexibility. A big takeaway and a question that we used to get quite a bit, all of these sensors, and it's important to know this, all of these sensors work the exact same way, okay? Just because you have this type of sensor or you have this easy sensor, these program the exact same way. They use the exact same tools, the exact same process, and they work on the exact same car. So if you have a tool that will program this one, it will program this one. So the takeaway there is that the sensors, the attributes of the programmable sensor carry to all of them. 99% coverage, one part, all that type of stuff. The only differences are the physical mounting differences. And that helps you to account for all of the different wheel tire combinations that you could see. Because, I mean, we know all the different, just the OEs, there's a big variety. But once you get into aftermarket, there's really, it's almost endless. But this gives you a lot of different options for mounting into a lot of different types of wheels. And this is just a graphic here in terms of the service kits that we have for all of the easy sensors. So again, just to recap, as you can see there, we've got the rubber valve that goes with the 33560. We've got the aluminum options that are interchangeable if you're using that sensor in a high pressure or high speed, and that is the same here as the 33700, right? This is good for high pressure or high speed, and you can buy it already with an aluminum, or the different variables that you can use with the 33900, which is what's showing you here in the graphics. You have a straight, you have a 90, and you have that available in shiny aluminum as well as in black anodized. So there's quite a few different coverages there in terms of the service kits with our programmable options.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the service pack options and stuff here. Like I said before, anytime that tire comes off that rim, it's recommended to change the service kit. Just, I mean, you think about it, like I said, it gives you a chance to take a look at it, but I think of it as changing your oil in your vehicle and not changing the filter. So you definitely want to change that service pack and everything on that vehicle. Now, we have a complete line of the service kits, and we've done a good job of consolidating them down. So instead of having all those different numbers, because one service kit that fits this make and model won't work on another one. So they're unique. You have to look it up and figure out which one you need. And like I said, we have a complete kit and we've consolidated them down. Make sure that you have a kit before you bust a tire down, because I have had that bite me before. I busted a tire and I didn't have a kit for it. So,
yeah. Right. And I think back when Troy and I started with the company way back when, there were very few service kits because there were very few versions of sensors. Yeah. We've both been around long enough to see that number grow exponentially, and now it's getting consolidated back down. Another point that I wanted to make in terms of service kits are kind of the same thing Troy was saying earlier, but it can't be stated enough. You're not nickel and diming a customer to death to service these valves. With this type of a valve, with an aluminum pipe like this here, this seal is what's holding the air in the tire. Now, if you have a car that's got, I don't know, what do you get out of a set of tires? 40,000 miles? If you have this grommet at the bottom of that valve, 40,000 miles, you're going from winter to summer. So you're going from snow and ice to highway in the summertime. Here in Virginia, it's pretty warm in the summertime. So, you know, you could be going, this thing's going from 0 or lower to well over 100 degrees. It's compressed because you're torquing the nut down, so it's compressed. This rubber can degrade over several years and tens of thousands of miles. So when you're servicing these valves, what you're doing is replacing the seal parts. You know, back in the TTV days, you broke a tire, you changed a valve, and it was what holds the air in your tire. Same concept here. You're replacing the parts that keep the air pressure in your tire. So it's important to service these valves when you break the tire down. It's not just nickel and diming people to death. It's really an important piece of the system. And Schrader offers a complete line of replacements for our own sensors, the programmables, as well as the OEs. So when you go and you break tires down, it's really important to service these valves and make sure that the integrity is there for the long haul. Okay, so in addition to sensors, be it OERs and programmables, we do have a branded line of tools. This tool here is our ST1. Now, the way we sell tools,
what we do is basically with the bundles, when we sell the bundles like this, between the sensors themselves, so you take the cost of the sensors and actually the updates, 5 years free, you're basically getting that tool for free. So basically, like I said, when you figure up the cost of the sensors and that 5-year update, that tool is basically free. I look at it like, you know, the tool is the razor. Your sensors are the blades. So you're going to want to, you know, get the customer into it, and then you can sell them the replacement sensors.
Right. So the ST1 tool, this particular tool is Wi-Fi capable. So that means it can be updated wirelessly through your Wi-Fi. It can program the Easy Sensor products. It can also be updated to be unlocked and program multiple brands of sensors. It gives you OBD functionality, so you can do retrains on vehicles that require an OBD link. It has a nifty little tread depth gauge. So this is something, and it's all this goes to communicating with your customer. It's got a needle, so it can go onto your tire. It plugs onto the tool. and it can give you a printout of the tread depth. So this is information that you can communicate to your customer, whether you're selling them tires, whether they're having a tire issue, whether they're having a TPMS issue. It's all part of doing a complete health check or a diagnostic of the wheels, the tires, and the TPMS system. This is just a really good all-around tool, and it comes with, as Troy had mentioned, the 5 years of free updates. So it comes with, you can always keep the tool updated to the newest software for the 5 years. Now, this is the S57 tool. So this does everything that the ST1 tool does, with the exception of a few add-ons, right? So first of all, this has a touch screen. So everything that you do with this, you can just touch the screen and navigate the menus, which is really cool. It will test and read all known sensors. It gives you the ability to go into the OBD, to read DTCs, and that's something that we kind of touched on earlier, right? Customer brings you a car and the TPMS light was on, but you go out and you scan the sensors and they're all working. Well, sensors, as with anything that is battery operated and or electronic, they can get a little sketchy when they get to the end of their life. So you can have a scenario where a sensor on a cold morning, a guy goes out, drives his car down the road, sensor's not broadcasting in, you're getting what? A blinking light on your dashboard telling you have incomplete communication. Now, as you drive it a little bit, that sensor warms up, it starts to transmit. Now the light goes out. You bring it to your shop, and the poor guy at the shop, you're telling him, no, I know that light was on, and he's out there testing away, and everything's working. Having the ability to go into the OBD port and pull out a trouble code is effectively like being able to look into the past. You can look at what reason that light was on 3 days ago. And that's really a good feature because, kind of, again, feeding back to the car with 115,000 miles. Yeah. It's not uncommon for a sensor to get a little flaky at the end of its life. Yep. An older sensor's been in there a while. They don't always, and sometimes they do, and there's nothing that is absolute in this, but sometimes they don't just stop working cold turkey. They don't just stop. Sometimes they get a little flaky, and they'll work and not work under certain conditions. So this gives you the ability to troubleshoot that better. It gives you the ability to communicate that information to your customer. Another thing with this tool, as with the ST1, 5 years of free updates. The average life of an electronic shop tool is 5 years. That's why we come to that point of providing 5 years of free software updates. On the tech lines, the two biggest calls that we would get over the years are a customer that has bought this type of a sensor and either doesn't know what type of tool they need, or they do know and they haven't kept up on the software. The biggest reason that people don't keep up on the software is the costs. Typically, with a lot of tools on the market, there is a cost associated every time you update it.
Yep. So sometimes it's costly.
And sometimes it's costly. So a lot of shops kind of let that go. It's not, they don't keep up on that like they probably should. With these tools, you have 5 years of free updates. That means for 5 years, you get the latest software, you get the latest applications, you get the latest upgrades, all of the features that get added in, even on the OE side that we replicate with these, gets added into the software. So 5 years of free software is a huge selling point, whether you're buying it or selling it to a customer. 5 years of free updates is a huge deal when it comes to TPMS scan tools.
Most time you say free, most people jump on it.
Okay, so we're going to jump back, I guess, and review here just for a second. So the most important thing to our customers in terms of who to select: expertise, reliability, flexibility and choice, and training and support. As the North American trainer, that's a little bit near and dear to my heart as far as training. So a company that can provide you with a TPMS education and good technical support is really important. Okay. Again, our training and support team is TIA certified, which means that we're supposed to know our stuff, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And they test us and they make sure that we know. We can go out in terms of training and we can do customized training for your business. We can tailor that to the sales side for people that are going out in the field. We can go out and do virtual, so we can do it online. And we can tailor the material that we're teaching to whether it's going to be sales driven, or you're trying to sell it as a distributor, or to the guy working in the shop. We can tailor it to physically. How do you mount these parts? How do you make sure that they work right? How do you troubleshoot them when the systems don't work right? How do you go through all those processes? How do you know on this particular tool what all the buttons do and all the menus do and all the features do? Because I can tell you, this tool does a lot. When I was on the tech line, and the version at the time wasn't even this version, because this is the newest one. But I took this tool with me everywhere I went because I can look up part numbers, relearn procedures. And anybody in this business knows how fun relearns are. Some vehicles are really nice and easy, pop them in and drive. Other vehicles, you have to jump on one leg and hop up and down and pray to whatever God you believe in to get it to work. So the tooling, and being able to have a company that backs the tool, teaches you how to use it, goes through all the ups and downs. That is really an important thing. We also have a technical support line that you can contact that is available 12 hours a day. And we also have an online e-training program, and that allows you to quickly train new hires when they go through onboarding. So this is a little bit here on our online TPMS Academy. TPMS Academy gives you an introduction to TPMS. It covers the TPMS legislation. It gives you a system overview. It tells you how to replace a sensor. It tells you the different types of sensors. So it's divided into those 5 modules. And of course, there's such a vast bit of information with TPMS, so many variables that you can come across. This online course certainly can't cover everything. But what it does do is it gives somebody that doesn't know about TPMS a really good basis, a really good broad brush basis of how the system's supposed to operate. It can be done online. There is no cost for it. So you can do it at lunchtime. You can have your new employees come in. They can take this course. If they pass the course, they have a printable certificate that they can give out. So it's just a really good way to get a broad understanding what the systems are, what the parts are, what the expectations are, how to change parts. It's a really good way to give you a broad understanding of the TPMS systems.
I use it sometimes just to go through that because it's really cool. So I like the animation.
He's easily amused. So our tech support, and that's another really big one. We both came from the tech support line, so we know how important that can be to customers, be that the car owner, the car driver, or be that the service technician that's working on it. Having support for the products is really important. If you get nothing else out of this particular webinar, screenshot that screen right there.
Get that number.
Get that number.
Because the tech guy that's on that line is amazing.
He is top notch.
I will say that, yeah.
The tech line is available from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is also available 10 to 2 on Saturday. What we basically teach and what we stand by is a 10 to 15 minute rule. If you're working on a car and you spend more than 10 to 15 minutes trying to solve a problem. So in other words, you've gone through your bag of tricks, right? You've gone through everything that you think should work, the way you understand it. You've tested it. You've gone through all your steps, and that light just won't go out. 10 to 15 minutes. If you get to that point, give us a call. Our tech guys hear this. They hear these problems all the time. So they are quickly able to figure out what tool you're using. And I would suggest that when you call, always know what part you're working with. Give them a part number, know whether you're using an easy, a programmable, or you're using an OER, and what tool you're using. Those are really big points. We have almost all the tools here in the shop. So when those guys get the calls, they can go right into the tool that you're working with, go through the menu with you, work through how to program, how to test, how to do a relearn. These guys are really great, the guys that are working on our line. Now, if you have a problem that's not quite as urgent, okay, just a generalized question, you can send that in on our email, which is schraderna@sensata.com. We also have on our website, www.schraderppms.com, we have a search tool. So you can plug in the make, the model, and the year of the car that you're working on. And they're going to give you on that site, it's going to give you all the options. It's going to give you the OER options and the part numbers. It's going to give you the service kits for the OER parts. It's going to give you the easy options if it is an easy compliant vehicle, which 99% of the vehicles are, and it's going to give you part numbers and all kinds of information about that vehicle. We also have a mobile app. Everybody has their phones in their hands all day long, right? So we have an app for the Google, for Android, as well as for Apple, and I'm an Android man. He's an Apple man. So, but anyway, we have an app that you can go into. It's going to give you part numbers, relearn procedures, contact information for how to get to the tech line, all that kind of stuff. And it's a really handy way when you're working on a vehicle, you have it in your shop. It's a really handy way to have a lot of information at your fingertips. Kind of like the tool, but it's an app in your phone.
And I use the app a lot myself, because if I'm not at my computer or I'm away and I get a customer that asks me, hey, what's the part number for this? I go to the app because it's pretty simple. So.
And you would like to think after 100 years of doing this, right, that we memorize all the part numbers. But that's not always the case, unfortunately. I think we tend to put information in one ear, you lose it out the other sometimes.
Yeah, and mine evaporates out the top.
So as everything grows, you know, as the numbers grow, you get more and more stuff. Having a reference is a really important thing.
Yeah, and we used to have to tote binders with all the catalogs and everything in it, and laptops. And now
this is our binder now, or your cell phone.
Exactly.
So we'd like to thank you for watching the webinar. I hope you found it informative and all that kind of stuff, and you took something from it. So this is the end of our formal portion. So we're going to open it up to questions and see if you guys want to pick our brains a little bit. So we're going to turn it back over to David in the studio.
Thank you both for that great presentation. In a few moments, we will begin the Q&A portion of our webinar. But before we do that, I'd like to ask everyone to please take a few moments to fill out our survey, which should be popping up on your screen momentarily. And if it doesn't launch, you can also click the survey icon in your toolbar at the bottom. Now let's get to a few of our audience questions. Our first question here comes from Hector. Hector asks, is a shop liable if a car owner chooses not to repair a TPMS system?
The question, like I said, the shop liable car. Main thing is if the vehicle comes in with a light on, and the customer doesn't have the money to fix it or doesn't want to fix it, it can technically by law leave that way. It can leave the way it came into your shop. But if that light comes on while it's in your shop, you need to fix it, before they can leave. So,
really, the rule is you cannot knowingly disable the system. So as long as the vehicle leaves with the light still on, right, the system is still working. It's still alerting you that you have an issue. That's really the tight part of that, is that you cannot knowingly disable the system.
All right, our next question comes from Dino. Dino asks, when should all 4 sensors be replaced?
All 4 sensors be replaced. We recommend, like I said, we were talking about as far as one sensor may go bad. It's just like with Tom, you had a great reference about the battery and the flashlights there. So what will happen is one goes bad. It's a good time to check the other 3 because they were put in at the same time. So they're not if, it's when the other 3 die. So it's a good time to replace all 4 when that happens.
Right. It's really, that answer is really situational. It's understanding the lifespan of the sensors. It's understanding the mileage that's on the car, and knowing that sometimes when they're at the end of their lifespan, they all have 100,000+ miles on them. Replacing one doesn't make a whole lot of sense for your shop. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for your customer. You don't want them coming back
because you can look at multiple service charges.
Right, exactly. So if you're in a high mileage vehicle and it's had these original OE sensors in it the whole time, it just makes sense to address all 4 of them at the same time.
Our next question comes from Laura. Laura asks, what is the impact of not servicing the TPMS system and just checking the air pressure yourself?
One of the reasons, here's the thing, going around checking it yourself, a lot of people don't get in the habit of doing it every day or keeping an eye on it. That's the thing about TPMS. It's doing it all the time. So instead of you having to take a stick gauge and going out to each and every wheel on that vehicle every morning before you drive off, you crank your car up, it's going to alert you when you got a problem. So, I mean, right away, you know, you've got something that's watching your back with that TPMS when it comes to your tires.
Right. And again, just to give you the visual on that, you know, that little rubber grommet, that is what provides the integrity of the pressure that's in your tire.
Yep.
So if you have a set of tires that's on your car for 40,000 miles, do you really want to change a tire or put a brand new tire on and leave the same grommet in it? It's been there for X amount of time, X amount of years. It's been through 3 or 4 winters. It's, you know, it's really, again, nickel and diming is something that comes up, but it's not nickel and diming because it's providing a safe vehicle. It's making sure that you're replacing all the seal items. You're really replacing the parts that hold the air in your tire.
Yeah.
So it's an important deal that you really don't want to shortcut that.
Yeah. And it means a lot not to be stuck on the side of the road, because I had a lady that done that. She used the light came on the freeway, drove into a tire shop, had a nail in it. They fixed it, but it damaged the sensor. She didn't want to replace the sensor. I couldn't understand that one, but after a while I was like, that system will not work unless you replace the sensor again. So that's how you knew you had an issue, was that sensor turned that light on. So, you know, eventually she understood. But yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll let you know when you've got a small leak. I mean, it helps. I mean, it's a good system. So
Dimitri asks, how long is the free updates valid on the ST1 tool?
That is 5 years from when you purchase it.
Yep.
And again, just to kind of reemphasize that, as somebody, both of us, in fact, that were on the tech lines for a long time, that was the number 1 or number 2 topic that you would get. It was always about the tools and about the updates. So it is 5 years of free updates from when the tool is registered. Yes, from when you go on and you do your first one and you register the tool, 5 years from that point, you can get free updates. And that is both of our tools that we demonstrated. The ST1 tool, that is the ST1 tool, as well as the S57. They are both 5 years from the date of registration.
Martin has a question. Martin asks, can your easy sensor be programmed more than once?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. They are not locked in any way. So there's no erase process, but you can just reprogram them. And they can be reprogrammed while under pressure as well. That's a good note.
Yep.
You don't have to take them out of the tire. You don't have to let the pressure down. They can be reprogrammed as many times as you'd like. I can almost guarantee you this one here, that is my test sensor, has been programmed for everything under the sun for phone calls for a very long time.
Absolutely. I've got one that I run the battery dead on it. It never saw a tire. So,
and that's one of the ways that we troubleshoot. Really, when you guys call in with a problem, what we're going to do is pick up a tool and we're going to pick up a sensor and we're going to program it and we're going to test it while we're talking to you. So, you know, that kind of, I know that's maybe a little off topic, but it feeds into that sensor is not locked. You can program it. If you get a different car and you change wheels and tires, you can move it over and reprogram it. You're good to go.
This one's from Michael. Michael says it's now fall, which means there are rapidly fluctuating temperatures in many parts of the country. Many of my customers will see their TPMS light come on when the first really cold morning arrives. Is this an opportunity to educate or sell TPMS to my customers?
Yes, absolutely. Because that's our call volume goes up. When that first cold snap hits, we get that call all the time. Hey, my light's on. Well, that's when it goes back to a tone, somebody flashing or blinking. I mean, flashing or solid. Pressure is going to be solid. So we get a lot of calls with that, and we're like, you know, just put some air in it. But then too, like I said, it gives you a chance to, you know, you check them. You know, it goes off the mileage, you know, how old they are and all that stuff. But yeah, definitely that is something you can educate, because it will fluctuate when that temperature goes down. It'll turn those lights on and the phone line lights up.
And just to the education point, a good rough rule of thumb is 10 degrees is 1 pound of pressure drop. So for every 10 degrees that your temperature goes down, so if it's 70 degrees during the day and it's 30 degrees at night, at certain times, fall time, that's 40 degrees of swing, 30 or 40. That means your tire pressure can fluctuate 3 to 4 pounds. Sometimes if you're on the edge of the system, if you're on the edge of what the placard is, that's going to trip the system. You get out on a warm road that's got a little sunshine on it, you start turning the wheel, the tire gets a little warmer, the light goes out. That really is a function of the system doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's telling you the tire pressure.
Absolutely.
So that's a really good point to open up your door, find the placard on the door, and make sure that that tire is set to that placard pressure. If you notice on that placard, a lot of times it'll say cold inflation.
Yes.
And that's taking into account that it's going to vary. When you drive, the tire's going to get hotter by 30 or 40 degrees. It's going to go up. When you spark it at night and the temperature goes down, it's going to go down by 3 or 4 pounds. So, a tire moves a lot in terms of pressure, and you want to make sure that you're set the way the placard tells you. Cold inflation pressure, 32 pounds. That means when the tire's cold.
Yeah. And some vehicles, I will say, they're a little more tight on it. Like I had one that was my personal vehicle, required 32 pounds. Well, when it dropped just 3, it wasn't 25%. It was just 3 pounds. It would trigger my light.
We have another question here from Dennis. Dennis asks, if I have a Schrader tool, how often can I update my tool?
Whenever an update comes out, generally when you register the tool, you're going to receive an email that tells you when a new software version comes out. But you can update it as often as you like, but you will be notified through email when a new version of software becomes available. You can link into, with our tools, there's a update downloader that you can download to your PC. That when you plug your tool up to it, it goes in and it's going to tell you what version of software you have in your tool currently, and it's going to tell you if there is a new option for you. So, there's no limit to how many times you can check it, but they'll notify you via email when you get a new version or when a new version becomes available, and you can hook up and let it go.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you both, gentlemen. That's all the time we have for our Q&A session today. But I'd like to remind our audience that a recording of this webinar will be available on the Tire Review, Tomorrow's Technician, and Shop Owner Brand websites in the next few days. So feel free to log in to view it again or encourage your colleagues to view it. And also look for a follow-up email directing you to the on-demand version of the webinar. This concludes our webinar. Thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great one.